Hi, I'm Beau Humphreys, and this is the Personal Finance Show. This is the seventh episode of the COVID-19 series. Is it seven? There's been so many. Yeah, the last one was update number 6. So that was May 3rd. Today is May 10th. It also happens to be Mother's Day, which is why we're recording this in the afternoon so that we could spend the morning with the mothers in our life, right? And today I have my friend James, who's joining us from somewhere, a mysterious location in North Carolina. What city? Can you tell us, James?
Yes, I'm in Durham, North Carolina.
Durham. Okay. What's the population there? Is it a big city?
It's considered a medium-sized city. I want to say maybe a couple hundred grand.
Okay. Yeah,
So a
that's
couple
all
hundred,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
about 200,000 residents.
So James Mombella, how'd I do, James? Good.
You got it.
Okay, good. James and I met in DC last year at FinCon, and he was on the podcast, my 100th episode. Thanks again for being on, James.
Yeah,
Talking about the privilege, financial privilege is a big conversation. It kind of comes up a lot lately when it comes to those who are doing okay during pandemic and those who are not doing okay. And it seems there's conversations about how people are bored, and usually those are from people who have money, and then there's conversations about I can't feed my family, right? Too. So like the it's revealing a little bit of who is in a privileged situation, and the comments can be a little bit weird depending on that, right? It's like, should we be complaining about having to watch Netflix all the time and that we might have to rewatch a movie? That's right. It's
yeah,
not. There are worse things, right? Let's just sit inside and see what happens. So the reason I'm doing this series, the reason I came out of sabbatical, if you will, podcast sabbatical, is because I want to connect with people around the world. It's a way for us to stay connected and hear stories from other people who may be going through something very similar to us, and to be connected with other parts of the world, as well as personal stories. And so, James, uh, tell me first of all, are you still working? What's the situation there?
yeah. So it's interesting. Work hasn't changed at all. It's been exactly as it was before for
Okay.
me because I am a financial planner and I've worked mostly virtually. So working with clients all over the country. We connect through video chat, and uh, the difference is I was meeting with some clients who are local in person, and those have
Okay.
just
Yeah.
moved to video chat. But otherwise, there hasn't been much of a change with work. My team, we live in different parts of the country, and we always connected virtually for our team meetings. And I mean, if anything, it's made work a little easier
Yeah.
I because I have more control of my schedule, having everything be virtual. And I think some people are actually, there's a little more action with potential clients because people are realizing in these tough times that maybe they don't know everything that they're doing with their money and they may
That's
need
a
some
really
help.
good point. How about that? Kind of giving them a little bit of a kick in the pants. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But are you getting the same amount of you're getting new clients during this time?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Like more?
oh yeah, I absolutely would not wish this situation to ever happen. Especially
No. No.
not to this degree. But the other side of things is tough economic times happen, and it's just how it works. Is it is a good time for people in the industry to get new clients because, like I said, the challenge sort of wakes people up and realize that they need to be more prepared, and so and being that everyone's at home, they've got time to attend virtual webinars. So we've been doing webinars, weekly webinars, to provide as
Okay.
much value as we can, teaching people how to navigate getting resources, and for business owners, how do you qualify for these loans, for these small business loans, And
Yeah, kind of
so,
like explaining that stuff because it's a little more complicated in the States, and I've heard some stuff about the small business loans not being available everywhere, that kind of thing. But you're trying to point them into the right direction, wherever they can get help. If you know about a different way to go about it too.
oh yeah, absolutely. And with webinars, it's easier to hold a webinar than an in-person event. It just takes less time, so you can do at
Yeah,
least one a week. You're getting in front of people, and like you said, we're actually walking them through the nuts and bolts of getting approved for these things. And so what they do is they say, "Oh wow, that was some really direct, actionable guidance. I wonder what else they have." And
awesome.
boom, we're having meetings.
Good, because yeah, like you said, you wouldn't wish this on anybody, but this is an opportunity for you to help people who may not have been ready before. They just weren't ready. They didn't think that they needed any help to get through this kind of thing or to be ready for the next one, right? Are you talking a lot about that? Like, okay, maybe you don't have a lot of savings now, but what are you going to do about that?
Absolutely, and what you just said calls to mind people who we had already been in contact in the past, and just
Yeah.
were
Okay.
were dragging their feet. And this is an opportunity to reach back out to those people.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So good. Good. So because the worst is if you're trying to help people but you don't have any way to do it, or you're having trouble adapting to the new virtual world. I know a lot of people are, right? You're already there. You're already ahead of it. I was in the same sort of boat. I was doing some counseling by video. We haven't talked since, but I'm a full-time insolvency counselor now, which means I meet with people after they've just filed for bankruptcy in Canada. And there's also a consumer proposal, which I did 11 years ago myself, which is the equivalent of Chapter 13 bankruptcy in the U.S. Right? Those are just two options. Basically,
Yep,
Chapter 7 and 13 we have the equivalents here.
I
The
see.
difference
Okay.
is people don't have to go to court for those here. It's a process that you can do without having. If you do all the things you're supposed to do, you don't have to go to court, right?
Sounds like a
Uh,
less costly uh,
Less costly and
steps.
less costly steps, but also less prohibitive too, right?
Yeah.
People, you don't have to have money for a lawyer to file for
Hmm.
bankruptcy in Canada, at least the first time anyway, right? So one of those conditions is they have to meet
Yeah.
for 2 sessions with me um, to be able to complete their automatic, bankruptcy, say discharge, or to complete their proposal. The sessions with me are mandatory, but I try not to make them feel that way. I'm just trying to help too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of it is I've been through this. I did it myself, right? So I know what it's like to live without credit. I know what it's like to walk into those doors and say, "Hey, I need help with my debts," and what can you guys do about it, right? What are my options? And so that's what the trustees and the associates do, right? They'll sit down and talk to them and try to give them options, and it's all free. And then they make the right choice. And honestly, from what I see, it's usually a million times better than where they were before, right? And that's why I like. There's no
Yeah.
upfront costs, right? There's nothing to stop you coming in. You just have to make the choice to not pay like egregious interest for the rest of your life. But we
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
have that issue with student loans that you have too. Is that student loans aren't automatically discharged. There's a 7-year waiting period for in Canada. I think there's some kind of similar rule. Do you know anything about that? The bankruptcy and student loans, or uh,
I don't personally, because that's not a situation that
yeah, it
that
doesn't come up a lot, right?
yeah that I come to
Yeah, yeah,
up until, yeah. If I run into someone who's considering that route, I would send them to someone else.
yeah.
So
Do you have
yeah, but
bankruptcy
but
trustees who are bankruptcy lawyers, right?
yeah, and I will say that at least with federal student loans, I'm sure those there are limitations on discharging those, because any federal debt, tax debt, any type of government debt like that,
Yeah,
uh, they don't let you get off so easy. So
that's
that
right.
doesn't
They
surprise
have,
me at all. But
you
hey,
know,
that's great that you all offer that free of charge. I mean, I like how
yeah.
y'all do things in Canada.
Well, I know. You've been getting to know us a little more, right? But the bottom line is, it doesn't hurt to come in and talk to a bankruptcy trustee or insolvency trustee in Canada. I'm trying to use the words interchangeably for you because it just helps because it's all bankruptcy. in the U.S.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically it's a you got to go see a lawyer, and that and in the U.S. and that's a tough step for anyone in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So then that's enough about me. That's my update. So back over to you. So you are you're working virtually. That's great. So this has affected you in a way, and you've been able to take a positive step forward to help more people, which is great. What about your family? Is everybody okay, first of all, and then is everyone staying in the house together? How does it work in North Carolina?
Yeah. So everyone is okay, fortunately. And
Good.
back in, I want to say, March, maybe late March, is when we had our stay-at-home orders. And
Okay.
I it's funny, this whole coronavirus episode has, to me, exposed just how weird our system is in this country. With the federal government, you have states, you have localities, just how all that interacts. Because I've
Yeah.
never really seen them all firing on all cylinders before.
It's
So
just
you have the
they're
federal
showing their
government.
colors, right? Everything is just right in front of everybody's face now.
Yeah, and it makes me think, man, it shouldn't be this complicated. We should have like just one government and not have to deal with all this coordination issues. Because you got the federal government who has refused to issue any real order this whole time. They wanted to give people their own choices while giving them sort of recommendations and guidelines. The state of North Carolina, I want to say it was late March when they issued a stay-at-home order for the whole state, and that is now being lifted
Okay.
slowly by phases. And then our county and city also had a separate stay-at-home order, for our that relates to our
Really?
city and county.
Okay.
Yeah, and they all, I mean, I'm sure they're talking to each other, but at the end of the day, they all have their own realm of authority, and so both the city and the state stay-at-home orders are being slowly lifted now. When they were first instituted, that's when my wife started working from home. So we
Okay.
don't have kids yet, which I can say, talking to people who have kids, we feel pretty fortunate that we don't have them yet, and they're going to
Yes.
come later when maybe things will be a little less hectic. And so for now, it's just us two and the dog. And she yeah, around the time when the stay-at-home orders started in beginning of April or end of March is when she started working from home. She works for Duke Law School in the student
Okay.
affairs department, so she can do a lot of what she does at home as long as she has a computer, and it's fine. And I
Same
remember,
as do email or Zoom or that kind of stuff, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember I was actually getting on her for a while, like, when are they going to let you work from home? Because like beginning of March, I was already where everyone else got a month later. I was already there. I was like, we need to lock
You're
this down.
way
When
ahead.
when are
Yeah.
they going to let you work from home? I want us to be safe, and so finally they did, and so we have this really unique. I'm sure we may never experience again, where we're just both working from home. We both sort of go to bed and get up whenever, and we're both just always here and working. And in theory, we save time. We don't have the commutes, and we should have, we have a more flexible schedule, and it's very interesting.
It's it's the trade-off, right? We don't have the commutes, but then we don't have the other things that are outside of the house that enrich our lives in other ways, right?
Yeah,
I'm not much of a outside person, right? I was saying just earlier when I was recording the Dear Ruby show with my friend Rubina that I got an email from Google that said that I traveled by foot 1 kilometer in April. So like, you don't need to know the conversion between kilometers and miles, James, and know that that's not a lot.
yeah,
That's not a lot of traveling to be done. I should I like having the option. I like to run, right? When it's nice out, when it's nicer, right? April was still pretty cold. We had snow yesterday. It's
Oh man.
normally I don't think it snows always at the beginning of May, but it does happen. It seemed like it was kind of out of the blue snow. It was nice, like it was a lot warmer before.
Yeah,
But
I take that back. And like in Canada, I'm gonna have to take back my original comment.
yeah, you could stay indoors when it snows. That's just letting you know, right?
That's a
But
fair point.
yeah, we were like, "How do you live?" And like, well, we have a heat and big coats, right?
Yeah.
That's usually how it goes. And in the colder parts, the cars actually do plug in. There's a little plug that comes out of the car. You plug into the outlet on the outside of your house, so that the engine block doesn't freeze overnight.
Oh wow.
In some parts, not always, not the like we're in southern Ontario, so it's probably one of the warmer places in this area, right? Because we're actually into the States, right?
Yep.
Windsor's right next to Detroit. You were just there, right?
Yeah.
We're not far from there, right? And that's where my wife grew up in that
Oh,
area
so I
too, right?
could have went to visit you.
We might have been there around that time, actually, and if I remember correctly. We might have been visiting when you were. It was a conference, right?
Yeah.
Were you attending
It was
there?
it was mid September conference in Detroit.
Yeah. What kind of conference was it? Can you talk about it?
It was the Association of African American Advisors. So as you can
Not,
imagine, there aren't a whole lot of black advisors like me in
well,
this country. So
tell us about that.
so,
How many are there, and why aren't there more?
so how many are there? I actually don't have the numbers on the industry as a whole because
Hmm.
the wealth management financial planning industry it's very loose. There's not a whole lot of structure and there's
Okay.
different licenses
Yeah,
and
you
things
don't
like
have to
that.
have one designation or something to do this, right?
Well, I mean the minimum the minimum requirement is to get a license, an investment advising license from
Okay.
your state.
Sure.
And so I'm just not sure if there are numbers on just the whole industry as a whole, but there are numbers for people who've attained the certified financial planner designation,
Okay.
which I
Okay.
would argue is a minimum requirement to do planning, but that's not how it works. I mean, there's about 80,000
Okay.
people in the country who have that designation, and financial planners in general is probably 200 plus thousand, 200, 300,000 advisors in the whole country.
Okay.
So again, not the best numbers on the 200 or 300,000, but for the 80,000 or so who have the certified financial planner designation, only about 1,500, which is, I think I did the math right. It's about 1.5% of,
Wow.
yeah, of the entire group of people who have the certified financial planner designation are black, 1.5%. So,
And
we got to get together and
yeah, well, of course, yeah.
we gotta get together and
And how
build
do you
some
make and
camaraderie.
find out how to make more too, right?
Oh yeah, that's
Right, come
part of
up
it.
with strategies to make more. We've talked about this before, you and I. That is a very low percentage. I mean, even
Yeah,
relative to the demographics in the U.S., right? It's not
yeah.
like that's the representative of the demo of the U.S. population, is it?
No, I'd say about 10% of the U.S. population. And I know
Yeah,
it it's always skewed for me because I usually live in metropolitan areas where it's a lot
yeah,
higher,
sure.
and then I got to think about, well, but the whole country, you have states like Montana, you have huge swaths of the country that don't have any black people, so that brings it down to I think around 10%. I mean, it's the same reasons for underrepresentation in a lot of other
And everything.
areas of life.
Yeah,
It's not having the exposure, not even knowing that that industry exists,
yeah.
and not having anyone to introduce us to that possibility. And so
And not
we're
having the relative or the mentor who was financial planner or like a CFP in this case, right?
Yeah,
Having
or
somebody that you know in your community who is that, and they can encourage others growing up to strive towards that.
yeah, it would either be a mentor, or like you said, maybe a family member does it, or maybe maybe you don't have you don't have a situation where your parents had an advisor. You remember them
Oh
meeting
yeah, that
with
too.
them
Yeah,
because they
absolutely.
didn't have enough money to do that, and so and then I'd add on top of that is also, even if you are aware of the industry, having enough financial stability to take the leap and actually try to make it work. I mean, be able to go get clients and not have a stable income for a couple of years. That's a lot. That's a lot to ask, both from the standpoint of being able to forego a salary for a couple of years, and you probably have student loans you got to pay
Yep.
off, and then also just where do you go to find clients? Your natural network may not be as ripe for the type of clients that your firm is looking for.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah,
there's like this more and more barriers. And so is that what you would talk about at the conference, is how to break those barriers down too?
that's part of it. So part of
Mm.
it is how do we support those of us who are already in the industry, and then we also talk about bringing knowledge and exposure about the industry to young people in school, and every conference we have a cadre of students from one of the historically black colleges,
Okay, nice.
and they uh, they provide free labor in doing a lot of the
People call those volunteers, James.
yes.
So they're volunteers, yeah.
Yes, so that they volunteer in a lot of the setup and things that we need done for the the conference itself, and then they
That's
also have
great.
an opportunity to attend all the events and ask all the questions that they want, and learn about how they can break into the industry themselves.
I'm, one of the things that we're mourning a little bit during all this is conferences. Um, I when would the next one of those be? Remind me, was it when did you come?
It,
Is it in the
it
fall?
was it was yeah, it was mid September. So the next one was gonna, it was supposed to be mid September again this year, and in DC this time, which I was really
Okay.
looking forward to.
Yeah, because you could go back to and do business with your head office, right?
Yeah, and just being back where I'm from. That's where I'm originally
And that's where
from.
you're from. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Uh, but personally, I don't feel very confident in it going through as planned.
In the same respect, FinCon, I already have a flight booked to Long Beach for the end of September.
Yeah.
I had it booked. Same thing. We have flights booked to Italy in August, and we had that in January. So that's still up in the air. We don't know. I mean, it's again, as I said earlier, it is a question of privilege to even be able to be concerned about that kind of thing, right? Like we're fine, our families are fine, so we don't get to go on the trip this year, right?
Yep.
We'll do it again whenever we can, right? We're going to get credits from the airline, and if we, depending on what happens with Airbnbs, we'll see what happens there. But at the very least, it's like we're at a loss, and there's sunk costs too, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I gave up something else so that I could do this, and now I can't do that thing. It's you know, as if we were going to get into real personal finance advice right now, which I don't do that much. But don't spend money on vacation if you ever need that money, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
right again, putting things on credit cards, right? That we don't think about that, right? Because you're not even if you put a trip on a credit card and it gets canceled and you get your credit, well, now you have debt and you don't even have the benefit of going on that trip anymore, right? Which was you made that choice to put it on there so you could go on that trip, and then maybe that would fulfill your life a little bit, and you come back and you pay that debt off, right?
yeah.
Now we don't even have that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So
but
you'd hope that next time that they would think twice before putting it on the credit card, and just save
isn't
up
that
for it.
like that's the one thing that we can like the most basic thing that we can hope from all of this, right? Is hopefully everybody gets out of this without too much of a bump in the road, right?
Yeah.
But maybe it wakes up a thing or two inside of them that was like, you know what, I don't want to be in that situation again. It's the same thing when people file for bankruptcy or a proposal here is that like they will, it's supposed to shake you up a little bit. It's a big event, right?
Yep.
Your credit's going to be ruined for a bit. This is a similar thing, right? Where, hey, if you thought you were invincible job loss wise, you're not.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and it's hard for us to keep those things in mind. Like, I might lose my job, I might get sick. Those are the things. Like, I'm trying not to shame anyone for not having an emergency fund now, right? Because
Hmm.
we just have to deal with things and move on.
Yeah.
But it's moving forward where we can then talk about, okay, now what are you going to do though, right?
Oh yeah. I will not shame anyone. I tell everyone I talk to that this is a no shame zone when it comes to
Sure,
finances, because that's the
I
only
like
way
that.
that you can really help people, right? And we're taught in our industry we must look at everyone we talk to with unconditional positive regard, all the clients, all potential clients. But I will say, I will not shame you, but I will use you, but withholding your name, as an example for the next person I talk to,
Okay.
who may be giving some pushback on on
Right.
setting aside their
Why do I
emergency
do this?
reserves.
Why should I do that? Right? Why should I do that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why. I mean, like you said, it is, again. We would never wish this to happen, but it has been a wonderful lesson for people to see these industries where people thought that they were invincible, and they're
Yeah.
not. And I mean, we have a client. We have some clients who are surgeons. They're not having elective. They're not having elective procedures right now. That's how they got paid. That was their
Yep.
source of income. Whoever
Absolutely.
thought that doctors, especially in a health crisis, doctors would have interruptions in income?
It's things that we never thought. By the way, I really like that term, unconditional positive regard. Is that what you said?
Yep,
Is that
yep.
you, or is that like a company statement, or did you just make that up on the spot?
I think I learned that from the Certified Financial Planner
So they have that as like a
courses.
mantra of in of sorts.
Yeah.
It's good. I that because that yeah, right. That's how we should approach anybody that comes to talk to us, especially if they're in a vulnerable financial position, right?
Yeah.
I always reveal my story that I've been through an insolvency to make sure people understand that I have no judgment. And I'd be a hypocrite if I did, right?
Hmm.
So that tends to put people at ease. And it also makes them open up a little more too, right? Because we have our guard up all the time about financial matters, and I'm trying to break down those walls a little bit. That's the reason for this show, right? That's why
Hmm.
this show exists, right? We
Yep.
talk about stuff candidly. We talk about how it's all just about helping other people, and yeah, like so. Yeah, I mean, tell us a little bit about your company itself, right? So your company is mostly filled with some of the 1,500 CFPs that exist in the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a team of four of us right now, and all black CFPs, and we work mostly with professionals in the ages of, say, in their 20s to 40s, who are they either, a lot of them are like us. They're people of color who may be first generation wealth builders, first generation professionals, or they our white clients are allies. I mean, they care about the same things we care about, and what
Yeah.
they all have in common is they're all successful. They've worked hard for themselves, and they want to give back to their communities and causes that they care about. So they want to actually help make the world a little bit better than it was when they first got here. And
That's
so
awesome.
that's where our advice comes into play. Is not only are we helping you build wealth, but we're helping you figure out the best way to leverage your wealth to to help the people and the causes you care about. Like, for instance, we were just talking to a client who uh, we were just talking about credit card debt, right? So we have a client who has $50,000 of credit card debt,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
he was
I've
sitting
been
on
there.
about he was sitting on about 100,000 of Google stock that he was provided. RSUs, restricted stock units, is
Okay.
what we call them. Basically, provided stock as compensation back when he was working for Google. And
Okay.
and you may know uh, from just your own personal education you've gone through that you probably don't want too much of your wealth in one company.
In one stock. Oh,
So
I could tell you a story or two. Yeah.
yeah, so we're like, you're going to need to liquidate a lion's share of that stock anyway to not to reduce that exposure. But then
Diversify a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, but then guess what? When you have that cash, go ahead and pay off the credit card debt
Yeah.
with the stock that had the lower capital gains
Okay.
upon liquidation. And then guess what? The stock with the high capital gains, that the ones that you were gifted, or not gifted, the ones that you were given by Google as compensation 3 years ago or so, and you've got high capital gains, go ahead and donate those to that scholarship that you all
Oh.
founded at one of the local universities. And because when you donate a highly appreciated stock, no one pays the capital gains taxes. You don't pay them. So, an example, let's say you have $1,000 stock. You bought it for $200. So you're looking at
Yeah.
an $800 capital gain.
You got to
If
pay
you,
taxes on that.
yeah, if you gift the stock to a nonprofit, then you you get the full tax deduction for $1,000 donation. You made $1,000 donation. They can
Okay.
sell it, and they don't pay capital gains because they're a tax exempt organization, right?
Okay.
So it's a tax efficient way to donate. It allows you to donate more
And
that
in
way.
this case, what about him keeping that money though, the cash for himself? He didn't need that to live or anything.
No. Well, the thing is, we were looking at their budget. They had already budgeted contributions to the
Okay, so
yeah.
charity.
Yeah, they had already budgeted contributions to
Okay,
the scholarship.
so you looked at this and gave them an efficient way so that, well, like you said, you got to cash it out anyway to pay off the credit card and then to make it actually usable money and to diversify. That was the main thing, right? It's like anyone can tell you never keep all of that in one basket, right?
Yeah. So instead of writing them a check for $1,000 and paying the capital gains on the stock, just give them the stock. You've now given them $1,000, and you keep that cash, and no one pays the taxes. And then
So
that gives them money. They could donate more because of the tax savings.
that's an example of how you're trying to use your knowledge to help someone give back in an efficient way, as well as protecting their, whatever is most efficient for them too, and helping everybody. That's how we should be looking at our money, right? What's the best
Absolutely.
possible scenario here? Because a lot of people look at taxes, for example. They're like, I don't want to pay taxes. Taxes suck or whatever, right? Well, taxes are for a reason. They usually keep the roads and other things open, right?
Yeah.
So like, sure, yeah, maybe at a certain point you're like, oh my God, taxes are so high. But I mean, if your taxes are high, it's probably because you make money, right? So it's about balancing all of those things. Like, okay, great, you want to make money, but if you pay these taxes, that'll help the rest of the community, and then you'll have a better world to live in, and maybe have more people who can help you make more money. It all just kind of feeds itself, doesn't it? And you
Oh
can
yeah.
decide what communities to feed as well, financially, right? It seems like a really nice, like, just instead of having like a policy of I'm going to try to make the client as much money as possible, try to help them do good with it too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one thing we never do is we never let taxes be the forefront in our advice. So one thing he was asking us is for some of the credit cards with a lower interest rate, am I actually paying more in taxes to raise the funds than I am in interest to pay the credit card off? And we're
Yeah,
saying,
sure.
well, but remember, you have too much in Google. That's the prime. That's the starting point. And that's the most important thing here is to have the right allocation. So go ahead and pay the taxes, like you said. Pay your fair share of taxes.
Yeah.
Help invest in our public infrastructure and things like that, and then also help yourself out by having a better diversified portfolio.
Well, yeah, I've had people say to me like, "Oh, my accountant says I should have more expenses so I can write them off." I said, "Well, if you'd have no expenses, you don't have any expenses. So, like, I
Oh,
don't know how else to answer that.
don't get me started on that. It's a tax write off. I can just do that. It's a tax write off, and
Well,
uh,
the example I gave was okay. So you've spent $100 on expenses, so you can maybe have a 25% tax, break on your taxes because you have less income, but you have $100 less income, right? So
yeah,
let's spend $100 to save 25, or do nothing, and pay the $25 in tax, right? It's we need to keep talking about things like this so that people get it, and as you said. Um, this is the time when people are listening. It seems a little bit more because their ears are perked up. Like they're like pandemic, pandemic money benefits. Everybody got a stimulus check in the U.S.
not everyone.
Okay,
You had to,
income.
yeah, you had to as a individual. Once you're making six figures,
Okay,
uh, then you didn't qualify for a check. And as a
okay,
couple, once your income got above 200,000, then you didn't qualify for a check either. Me and my wife did qualify,
okay,
but partially from what you're talking about is last year was the first year that I left a salaried position and I decided
mm,
to take the entrepreneurial leap, and so I had a good number of expenses and actually had a loss my first
okay.
year.
Because
So,
you're building up clients, right?
yeah,
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 okay,
and so we were under the limit and got to get a stimulus check, which we were happy about the timing of that because next year the goal would be not to qualify next year, right? So,
yeah.
but
Well, the
and
thing about
actually,
benefits. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Well, I was going to say real quick is they extended the deadline of when you could file taxes to July,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Well,
so
similar here too. Yeah.
yeah, and so we had people who we were saying, hold off, don't file yet, because they're going to use your 2018 taxes, and you qualified back then.
Of
You
course.
you were still in residency, and right now
Yeah.
you wouldn't qualify, so don't file. But in 2018, maybe you were still in residency or you were still in law school, so they're going to use that, and you would qualify. So go ahead and make sure you get your check before you file your taxes. So just a little advantage that we could give people to based on the lag of the income accounting.
Yeah, because no matter what, no matter if you still have a job or not, things cost a little more right now. It's harder to get things and like groceries, for example, right? And it's just a bit of a harder time. So hopefully people are using it for things that they need, or hey, if you don't need it, give it to charity, right?
Oh
It's
yeah,
it's supposed to be it's a stimulus check for you guys, so it's supposed to be put it back into the community. That's the idea, into the
yeah,
economy. Yeah,
yeah. And I
uh,
don't think it was nearly enough, but I guess it was better than nothing.
it wasn't a
Uh,
lot. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
multiplied by
it
the
was
population of the U.S., it's a lot. But
yeah, but which a lot of people are going to point that out as well. It's a large expense, but I mean it was only $1,200 per adult and $500 per child for people who have children, and and some people haven't even been able to receive it yet. It had a
I've
clunky
been hearing
rollout,
about that. Yeah.
and so I don't know. They're talking about more measures which would actually provide uh, ongoing payments, like monthly payments to people, and
Okay.
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see
Yeah.
where that goes.
Just keep an eye on that. And as you said, it's not. It doesn't seem like it's meant to pay for rent or anything like that. It's just to give a little bit of a boost, maybe.
Hmm.
But yeah, different states and the federal, and as you were talking about, everyone has all these rules, and we don't know how long it's going to go on for. But your state is opening up, and the local too soon.
Yeah, yeah. The May 15th is when the statewide stay-at-home order has already been lifted, and it's in, I think it's phase one
Okay. Yeah.
of opening up. So that means that not everything will be open up, but there'll be the essential places were always open, right? So phase one will be, you could say, the next layer of essential places will open up,
Yeah.
and then the local stay-at-home order expires on May 15th. And I don't know too much about the details of that, because honestly, I think that I think government orders aren't as important as people think, because just like how when there weren't orders, people could still make their own decisions.
Yeah.
When orders are lifted, people can make their own decisions to still stay at home, or
Yeah. No one's there
businesses.
kicking you out of the house, right?
Yeah, or yeah, businesses could still stay closed. I mean, my wife is still going to be working from home. Duke University is not opening up anytime soon because they want to keep their staff safe. So I think what's much more important than opening up the economy is widespread testing, so that
Yeah.
people like me and everyone else can actually feel confident going out and going to the movies again and going to restaurants and putting money into the local economy. Is they would need to feel that people who may have the virus aren't just walking around. They're being found early and isolated, and to keep the rest of us safe, you know?
And it'll take a little bit for us to get there. I have the same level, of anxiety, if you will, about this kind of thing because, yeah, if it's not essential, I don't see the point of going and risking it. Going to get a haircut, as you know, I don't need haircuts very often. It's it's not one of those things. But when I see somebody
Yeah,
complaining about that's like let's go with a automatic rifle to the Michigan State Senate or whatever, just because they want to get their roots done or something. I don't I don't understand that um, motivation. It's obviously not about that. It's about probably the original concept of freedom and how they feel like they should be free to do whatever they want. And then they can. And a lot of people are saying, go ahead, just as long as you don't go to the hospital and use up the resources, right? People
yeah.
should be free, but and I want them to be free, and I like that to do whatever you want to do. But these things affect other people, I mean, we have to be mindful of that too, right?
That's the difference, is when it affects other people. Now let me ask you, what's testing like in Canada, and
Yeah.
specifically
So
where you are?
yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's the one number that I'm just sort of confused about in terms of like, are they testing enough? I don't know if they are. I feel like they are. I feel like if anybody needs a test, they can get one. But um, like all I do is pay attention to the cases and the number of deaths and things like that. But like we're doing okay. It's not great. It's not U.S. Numbers. And what about North Carolina? How are you relative to other states? You did early lockdown.
Uh, yeah, North Carolina was one of the earlier states to lock down, and I'm gonna actually look this up real quick. I know
Yeah, we should.
it's definitely not one of the hot spots of the
Yeah,
country. So
I'll look it up too.
right now we've got about 13,400 confirmed cases, 500 deaths. So that's, relatively speaking, I guess not as bad as it is in a lot of other places. And it looks like 17, or let's see, 492 new cases as of recent. So the number of new cases is still going up.
Yeah, and so of course people are talking about that when it comes to reopening. It's like, shouldn't there be a lot like less new cases? Like I think our province is doing better. Like your state is, say, relative to New York, right? But still, there are a
Hmm.
significant amount of cases every day. So those are the questions that it's like. I don't know. I think you're right about the testing. I don't know though. Like I don't know if more testing is going to be. Of course, if everybody got tested, that would make sense, right? But
Yeah,
but then if it's not everybody, then who is it? Like I could have COVID right now, no idea, right? I mean, I
yeah,
probably don't because I've only left the house once, but uh,
yeah.
I'm probably very low risk. But still, right? It's I don't- it's one of those situations where it's really hard to know what's happening and what the best trajectory is for all of this. We don't know when it's going to end. We don't know, um, yeah, when are the borders going to reopen between us? There's just a lot of unknowns. I think that's the sort of the theme here, right?
Oh yeah,
And like you said, the only thing that could solve all of this, or even temporarily, is like everybody gets a test. But then, okay, so then there's one person who gets it from somewhere else, and we've all been tested, and now everybody's got it again, right? Like what apparently happened in the
yeah,
White House, right? Everybody gets tested constantly. Well, they, she didn't have it, and now she has it, right? And right,
yeah, yeah,
that's how viruses work. So it's just that's why the stay at home stuff, like you said, if you don't have to go anywhere, why would you? If you can do your work
yeah,
from home and you can help people, if you can get groceries delivered or go out once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever it is, we have these options now. Let's like utilize them and not necessarily go out there and just let's fight the virus, right? Like because
yeah. We're
like
we're we're warriors. The American
right
people
like
are. I don't know if you heard that. American people
but
are.
it's not. I don't think it's limited to the U.S. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, the whole independence thing is very, very much top of mind in the U.S. more than a lot of other places. Yes, but we all have this, right? We've all evolved into these intelligent human beings where, well, we're better than viruses, right? We
yeah,
can outsmart them. So let's right like that. That's the mentality that we start with. So when one's like a little bit difficult, we're like, well, I don't like that. I don't like you, virus, and I'm gonna get my gun or whatever it is. Whatever our reaction to something is, we're gonna do that. But it doesn't make a difference, right?
yeah.
It's like we kind of have to have humility here for a little bit and eat it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up good points. I guess you could say the one thing that really would clear things up would be a vaccine, right?
Yeah, that's it,
And
right?
and we're at least a year away from that, is what I hear. I also hear all the time of some cures in the meantime that people are experimenting with. People are working very hard all over the globe, it
Yeah,
seems,
my wife's
sharing research
volunteering
with
in
each
a
other.
clinical trial right now for that.
Oh,
She,
okay.
'cause as a med student, she would be more qualified than other volunteers to do that. So they've recruited med students a little bit to help out, right?
Uh,
If they can't be in the hospitals working, then they might as well be doing other things that they
yeah,
can, right? So yeah, there's a bunch of different options that people around the world are looking into, and of course, everybody has their different results and but these things take time, right?
yeah,
These things take like the vaccine. That's why a lot of people are unwilling to be like the vaccine's the only way because it's so far off. People are
yeah,
people are afraid of the virus, and then some people are more afraid of change, too, right? The change that might happen because we can't beat this virus right now,
yeah,
that's scaring a lot of people. It's not scaring that kind of thing isn't scaring you and I because we're already kind of used to a life where we don't have to leave the house to continue to make a living,
yeah,
and there are alternatives. It affects our quality of life, but not like life as we know it. If you want to look at it that way, and some people are defined by being able to leave the house, and I personally am not. So it's actually harder for me to accept, and I've been thinking about this lately, that I might have to go back to the way that everybody seems to want it to go back to, whether it's safe or not. And
yeah,
that's harder for me than accepting this new reality that I'm living in right now. And that's where my anxiety comes in. It's like everyone seems to be pushing to reopen, and I don't understand exactly why. Yeah. Are you kind of in the
yeah.
middle?
I'm with you 100% on. No, I'm with you 100% on
Yeah.
that because you hear people talk all the time about right. Yeah, this virus, you'll probably survive it, right? You have if you're in your 20s or 30s. I mean, I'm in my 20s. I'd say you have so let's say the general mortality rate is 3% or something like
Yeah.
that is what I've
And
heard.
you're on the low
Well,
end of
if
that.
if you're on your 20s, it's 0.0002% chance that you die. So don't worry about it. But then I also hear about potential long-term complications from this
Yeah.
virus.
Well, Paula
And
Pant, Paula Pant from the Afford Anything podcast, right? She had it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't know
and
she had it.
yeah, she did. She's been talking about it on her podcast. You should check out the episodes actually. And she's in her 30s, or I think she 30, or mid 30s, I think. And yeah, she had a hell of a time, right?
Yeah.
Um, and she's not supposed. She had a mild version of it, according to the whatever they're doing to compare it, right? So
Mm,
yeah, like you said, it's not as clear cut. Everyone has different views about it. Everyone has different tolerance for risk. Like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm fine to get sick, whatever, make me sick, even though it might affect the way that I breathe for the rest of my life, right?
yeah.
Um, if that's what somebody's willing to accept, then fine. I'm not here to tell you what to do, right?
Yeah.
I wish I wasn't dragged into whatever the majority agrees to do. I wish that I was maybe considered a little more, you know, can I be allowed to stay home if I want, even if the laws say you can't decide. If everybody's allowed to go back to work, you can't just decide to stay home because you're afraid of getting the virus or spreading the virus or whatever, for whatever reason, right? There are labor laws about this kind of thing, right? That say, well, that's not a good reason to not uh, do what your employer wants you to do, right? So
Yeah.
there's
That's a good
all
point.
that nuance is there, and so that's why it's so complicated for a lot of people who are like, I'm comfortable at home. Can I just stay here until the vaccine comes? Right? And
Yeah.
it's not that simple. If only it was, then we could make our decisions, right? But everyone has different, because then maybe there's a space in an office for you. Maybe do they even need the office anymore? That kind of thing. There's so many considerations to this, and it makes it even harder for businesses and individuals to make decisions because of the unknowns. So, like, if we just knew that it was going to be like vaccine in a year, okay, let's make the plan, right?
Yep.
Nobody knows any of that. So, uh, you may or may not be able to go outside, or will go outside. You're going to play it by ear, I think. That's what it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And to your point about retaining our personal choices in the midst of an opening up economy, is I'm talking to Rachel about, hey, we gotta, you gotta, my wife Rachel, you gotta negotiate with Duke to let you stay at home for a
Right?
while, because have you I'm sure you've heard of, what is the book, 4 Hour Work Week by Tim
Sure.
Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss, yeah.
Yeah, and you know how he talks about the grand plans and negotiating with your employer to stay home
That's
is
one of
it
his key things to be able to do that. That's how you can figure it all out. Yeah.
yeah, but like the most challenging part is getting that trial period where you do it. And I forget exactly what the trigger was to get the trial period, but it was something where you had to sort of try to twist their arm or finesse your way into a trial period where then you could say, look how well it did. Can you let me continue doing that? The one of the silver linings you could say from this virus is so many people have got a trial period that they
Yeah,
didn't
we
need to
we didn't
finagle.
have to, yeah, twist their arm to be like, hey, can you just try it out for a bit? That's a really, really good point. We all have this test period, and so we can use it as an absolute example of, I don't know, efficiency or even just the similar quality of work. The same. It's nothing changed or changed for the better. In terms of your case, it seems like the circumstances improve things. You're in the same situation, but the environment has changed, so that helped you. And so yeah, why, I guess the point is everything's not going to go back to the way it was. I think everyone's starting to understand that, and those that cannot are the ones that are going to be the most frustrated, and maybe are already visibly frustrated. And I understand that change is hard. It's
Hmm.
hard for all of us to go through this kind of change. I just wish that some of the people who were doing it weren't putting others at risk potentially. That's because that's what we all have to. We're all in this together, but differently. We've been talking about that a lot lately.
Hmm.
We're all in the same pandemic, but we're all in very different situations in our minds, in our work, in our finances, everything. Right?
Yeah.
But I should probably leave you at this. It's a good talking to you about all this, though. I like this. It's nice to connect with people all around, And I mean, you're going to come back on and later once the regular format of the show starts up again to tell your personal finance story, because I want to keep doing that stuff. But it was
Yeah, I'd
good to
love
be able
to.
to do a COVID related thing today. So thanks for coming on, James.
Yeah, Beau. Thanks for having me. It was nice to to get on and talk about the stuff because I really don't get an opportunity to talk about this a lot, even though it's very important to talk about. I'm usually my conversations are either work or if it's not work, I want it to be completely. I mean, I want it to be fun conversation.
Yeah,
I want
not
it.
not
Yeah,
not a intense conversation about viruses.
yeah, exactly. I want it to be just recreational and this was. But I am reading about this stuff a lot and thinking about it. I did enjoy sitting down with you and diving into it.
Awesome. Well, I hope I get to see you in person at some point in the next, I don't know, year. But otherwise, let's keep in touch. And it was really good to see you again.
Yeah, sounds good, Bo.